Hey new Tekken players, as always I hope you're doing well. So, slightly different type of video today. This is going to be the closest you're going to get from me as a talking head type video, although obviously I don't have a head, I'm just a body that floats in the ether. But never mind about that. Just going to share some thoughts with you about ranked, why you might feel like you're really struggling with ranked, you know, and how to deal with it. So this is my second attempt to record this. I'm not on a script. I've got some notes, so I'll try to not go off on one. The first one's a bit too long, so I'm going to try again, try and keep it a bit snappier. Just a reason behind why I wanted to make this video. Okay, I saw a post on Tekken Reddit where someone was saying how they were saying how depressing Tekken as a game can be, because they had just, you know, in I think a couple of days they'd fallen something like 7 or 8 ranks, you know, level, so really far down in one go. And they were saying how this was making them quite depressed, because I feel like they were just going completely backwards. And the reason why this why I this resonated with me was because I've had a similar experience with King. Okay, so my King was in Rulers. I basically just started picking him up again in ranked. To be honest, just to record some stuff for YouTube. So I had some kind of ranked clips that I could use, just to kind of keep the channel going while I was trying to make more sort of, you know, longer, in-depth content. Okay, and my King, who was in Rulers, is now all the way back down in Genbu. So bottom of red. So he's basically fallen all the way from the first level of purples to the bottom of reds. And so I completely understand why this guy was, you know, frustrated, and because it's something I'd shared recently, and I posted some thoughts. I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna make a quick video on this because I think it might be important, because I'm sure other people do the same thing. So I just want to talk about what happened to me and why I felt so bad. And a lot of it's to do with Tekken, the state of Tekken generally at the moment, and there's more specific things that I'll get into. So just before I go any further, this isn't. I'm trying to be objective about this. This isn't to be like salty or upset that I'm, you know, or, you know, anything like that. I'm trying to be objective about it. Just trying to explain why I think I felt so bad, and, you know, if it's happened to you, what you might be able to do about it. So. Anyway, I'm rambling, so let's begin. So first of all, very quickly, we need to talk about the current state of Tekken in the wider context, or Tekken 7 specifically. I checked this before recording this video, okay? Tekken has been out now for 5 years. It was released in June 2017. 5 years is a hell of a long time, okay? When this game came out, my son was still in nappies. He's now in junior school. Okay, that just gives you an idea of just how long this has been about. So it's about, we don't know exactly, but it's roughly 10 million players at the moment, or 10 million sales, I should say, across Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox. So why am I mentioning this, and where am I going with here? Okay, the wider important thing you have to realise at the moment, okay, and I'll explain this, is ranked is a lottery right now. Okay. So you might be asking, what Beige, what the hell do you mean by that? What do you mean ranks a lottery? Okay, so because Tekken has been out for so long, you know, not many people are just playing one character anymore. Lots of people have, you know, decided to pick up others. Nothing wrong with that. I've done it. I'm sure you guys have thought about doing it. Now, the way that the ranking system works in this game is, as you get your main character up, all your other characters, even if you've never played them, they all rank up as well. They rank up at a slower below, but they rank up at the same time. Now, when you get to a certain point, all your characters, your secondaries that you may have never played, they get to ruler, okay, and then they stop. That's even if you go all the way up to Tekken God Omega, which is literally, you're talking like the top sort of 1% of players in the world have reached that rank. So we're talking super strong players, you know, competitors, all the rest of it. All their secondaries will be at ruler. And same for if you've got up to, I don't know, high purples and blues. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying this is because you have a huge amount of very, very strong players at those ranks. Okay, and what happens is they pick up a secondary character, and that character will be in purples or reds, or if they're or scale it down to how you want. Okay, so they might have a main character who's in blue, which is a very, very impressive rank, and they pick up a secondary, and that secondary is in reds. Okay, so why am I saying all this? If you bump into these players while you're in ranked, just by definition, they are going to be stronger players than you. That is just the way of it, because they've got a character much higher up than you have. So just all things being equal, you're going to get beaten. The way I like to think of it, it's a bit like if I was playing Roger Federer at tennis, okay, and then basically they gave Federer a slightly different racket for the sake of argument. Let's say it's a slightly different shape and a slightly different size. He's still going to completely kick my ass, okay, because he's so much better. Doesn't matter if they got like a slightly different equipment to use. You're still going to get trounced. And that's kind of what it's like at the moment in with a lot of times when you play ranked. And you'll know this. You may have seen it. Depends on where you are. If generally speaking you pick the person you're playing is roughly the same rank as you, but their win rate, the amount of wins they got is much lower, that's probably not their main character. Okay, it's not a Smurf, although some are, but that's a different story we'll get into. They're just someone who's picked up a secondary character, and that's why they haven't got as many wins, because that character's ranked up automatically. Okay. Now, as I said, it's a lottery. If you bump into these players, just by definition, they are going to probably beat you, because they'll know their punishment will be much better. They'll know when to duck. They'll know, for example, that's -10 on block. They'll know to duck the second hit of this string. I'm just citing a few examples here, but you get the general point. So you're not going to the wins. I'm not saying you won't get them, but they will be harder than if you're playing someone who is at the actual same rank to you. Okay, so, and I mention all this because in my rank run, except running down, going backwards, I kid you not, 90% of the players I've played fit that category. Now, it could just be because of where I am in terms of purple reds. You run that cutoff, and maybe if you're lower down, you won't notice much. But I kid you not, about 90% fit that bill. Again, I'm not trying to complain here. I'm just merely pointing out this is what happened. So, just by definition, with that, it's you're at a disadvantage. Until those players rank up those secondaries and they kind of get out the way, you're going to be playing players who are stronger than you. That is just the way of how the rank works. And the reason why it's a problem now is, as I mentioned, is because it's been out for so long and because so many players, so many more people are playing other characters because they're bored of playing their main. They've got them to where they want to be and they want to learn others. And that is just the way Tekken is right now. And that is what happens when a game has been out for so long and this has got so stagnant. Okay, so that's one part of the lottery, but it's more complicated than that because there's other parts of the lottery you might bump into. There's cheaters. Okay, now I kind of thought that this was only a kind of like cheaters. We were talking sort of, talking to high levels, and I didn't really think it was around where where I am. It was only when I did my how to escape the green ranks video with Paul, you may or may not have seen, and I played the last person in that video was a Kazuya, and they had what I thought was amazing execution. They had a really, really powerful wave dash, electrics all the time, never missed a single electric, amazing sort of throw breaks, etc. So I thought, oh wow, this person's really, really good. It was only when someone pointed out on the comment section and I reviewed the footage that this person never ever missed an electric. But there are so many occasions where they would block a low and they wouldn't punish it. Now, if you're a good Kazuya player, he is all about block lows, punish, because he's got a while standing 13 frame launcher, so he can basically launch most lows in here. Okay, he never did it once. That should have screamed alarm bells of hang on, this is suspicious. And they also point out the only time that a throw wasn't broken was during a counter hit. Again, and there were other things. Basically, the long story was we soon realised this guy or girl was using macros to, you know, and that's why their execution was so good. So their execution was amazing. Their fundamentals weren't, because, you know, not even launch punishing a load that you blocked is just so kind of, you know, you would not have that level of skill and yet flounder on such an important thing amongst the throwbacks and other stuff. Anyway, point is, that was someone who was cheating in green ranks. So this is probably across the scale now in terms of, you know, now Tekken's on PC, people have been able to hack the game and come up with all sorts of ways of, you know, winning. And that's just, you know, that's just one example. That's before you get into the different examples of people who save scum, people who smurf. You know, there's all sorts of ways you can cheat this game. So you run the risk of bumping into that. And as I said, I thought that was just a high level, but apparently it's across the board. So that's your next sort of lottery. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that actually you're playing players who are the same level as you and they're not cheating. Why is rank still a bit of a lottery? Completely dependent on what character they're playing. Are they playing a character that you're really, really familiar with, you know the matchup? Or are they playing a really, really gimmicky character that has a lot of, you know, setups and if you've never seen them before, they're going to kill you. Okay? And that's quite common. There's certain matchups I really, really struggle with. I'll just give you a very quick example. I really struggle with the Josie matchup because I really forget to sort of... I never know when her strings have finished. And she always has, I've forgotten the move, but she always has the final counter hit launch at the end. And if you press too early, you get launched. And that I fall for that all the time. Because I'm always trying to punish at the end of a string and it catches me out. Now, beige, you might say beige, but just go into the practice mode and lab her and do that. Fair enough, except I've no idea she's going to be in Tekken 8. She's not very popular generally. Most player base don't like her. She might be in Tekken 8, she might not be. I haven't got the time to spend a lot of time labbing that particular matchup if she's not going to be in for the long run. I'll talk about this later in terms of time management. So a better matchup that I bothered to sort of invest in is someone like Hoang, because he's going to be around forever and he's a very, very strong character. And once you sort of know roughly his setups and what people like to use, he's actually not that difficult to counter. I made a video on it. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but let's just give you an example of it depends on what the character the person's using as to whether you're going to do well or not. You know, if you're not familiar with them, you're going to get destroyed. I mean, this is the problem with Tekken. It's based, there's so much knowledge checks, as it's called, which is basically if you don't know something, this person is just going to abuse it over and over and over, and you're gonna get absolutely destroyed. And then there's also, just to mention, there's also specific character matchups. So, for example, don't believe the anime; it's a lie. Most King players know that if you face a Ling, good luck. You're gonna 9 times out of 10 you're gonna get killed because her stances negate all of King's best moves, i.e. his throws, because she just goes under them. You know, that back one has a very, very high hitbox. So again, most of the time it just goes under. Anyway, I'm rambling again, but it's just one example. So it can be it's very dependent on who you're playing and what your character is and whether you're going to have a good matchup or not. So it's just another thing to add to the lottery. And then finally, I promise, even after that's all said and done, so let's say you're, same sort of skill level, same sort of rank, character you're roughly familiar with. All that said and done, you've got to then hope that the person is going to want to play for any amount of time. I'm sure this has happened to you. It's happened to me. I lose count how many times. You might play, say, like an Alyssa, who just is bombarding you with shit, like, in forms of strings and flying in from across the stage and doing all this nonsense. And you get so mullered like three games in a row. You then start to warm up and you remember, oh yes, I remember how I counter that particular move. I had to sidestep left and then I have to punish it. Or, oh yeah, she's always relying on this. I'll block it because she's always coming in. I'll block it and throw it, whatever. So you get your first win. After losing 3, you win 1. Then what happens? They quit. and they're gone. So you've just lost a shit ton of rank points because you've got 3 losses in a row. You win one because you finally started to sort of counter the, you know, the setups that the player's doing, and they're gone. So you're at a net loss. You've lost all those rank points, and you know, well done. Again, I'm not trying to assault or here. I'm just, because everyone can play as long as they want. I'm just saying that is a very common example of what happens when you're trying to play ranked, and why it's a lottery. Are you going to be lucky enough to get someone who's willing to stay for, you know, at least a couple of games, or are they going to win quit or, you know, lose quit at the first opportunity? Again, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that is a factor that determines whether you're going to win or lose points. And then you go back into when you go in that matchup screen, you go back into the world of waiting for your next game. Okay, so I think hopefully I've explained why that level of ranked is, you know, why it's a lottery. Okay, and you get sometimes with any form of lottery or gambling, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. In my case, when I tried to play King again, I got just a series of strong players that just killed me, because they're all on their secondaries, and then a couple of gimmick characters who just beat me again. And sometimes the opposite will happen. You'll have a great run of playing matchups that you're really familiar with, and you have some great sets, and you go back and forth. You win some, you lose some. They win some, you lose some, and you kind of both of you together sort of rank up, and that's Tekken ranked at its best. But my word, that's a rare thing these days. It just seems to be that never ever happens. You know. So, long story short, don't feel too bad if you're on a bad run. It could just be that, as I say, at that moment in time, the sort of the ranked lottery gods are just not working in your favour. You know, I get it. So, again, just checking my notes here to try and keep me on track. So that's just that's such a big context for everything else. And I think just have to remember that, okay? Ranked is not a level playing field. It can go in your favour, it can go against it. And don't feel bad if you're losing as a result. We'll come back to this later in terms of things to take away. But, you know, there's more to playing Tekken and just winning matches. Okay, so that's the general context. Now I want to just specifically talk about reasons why I particularly, when playing King, was losing, and why I suck, and why this might affect you. Okay, so something I've realised now, having played a few other characters, is that King is actually very, very specialist. He's not a conventional character. He's incredibly strong. Okay, no doubt in that, but he is specialist. He's not generic. His tools are very, very specific. He has to, you know, he doesn't have that many strings. I mean, I think it's 10 hit is pretty much the only one you can, you know, and even that is, you can't abuse it. He hardly has any strings really, so doesn't have that on. He doesn't have a generic downfall one, which in Tekken is insanely important. His movement. Sidestepping is rubbish because he's so bloody big. You know, you can't even, like, good luck trying to sidewalk drags while running to you. You get clipped by it all the time. He does have good movement back and forth with Jaguar step, but unlike, say, Feng, you don't block in this stage. So if you're playing someone who's good range, if King's doing this to you, just punish that shit because he can't block. It's not like Feng, who can do Kempo and still guard the whole damn time. Anyway, so I'm rambling a bit, but King's a very, very specialist character. Okay, you have to condition you have to do two things. First of all, you have to condition your opponent to not duck. Okay, which is hard because, you know, everyone wants to duck King because they don't want to get thrown, and everyone knows that throws are high. You then have to condition your opponent to stop pressing buttons, because again, how do you stop throws from coming out? You keep poking, you keep pressing, you keep mashing, because you know, throws are not unblocked, they're not power crushers, they're going to get countered by all this shit. So you then have to sort of you have to condition your opponent to stop pressing. Once you've done all that, you can then apply your throw game. So the point I'm making here is King is very, very special, and there's lots of other examples of specialist characters. and they take a lot of time and they take a lot of work to rank with. And I hadn't played King in a long time, but about 7 months ago I did nothing but dedicate time to playing him. I got my execution down. I never ever miss a giant swing. I see I've missed one just there. I had everything kind of pretty much sussed, and I got him from reds to purples, but that took a long time. Then I haven't played him for ages, and I pick him up again and just get destroyed because he is specialist, okay, and he's not. I know a lot of people think he's free because you just think, well, you know, throws are cheap, man, just throw. But for those reasons I mentioned before, people soon realise, you know, once you're out of blues, even green ranks know this, that if you just keep poking and keep getting the pressure on, you stop the king player from getting the throws out, or you just duck. So there's more to the game plan than that. So if you're playing a specialist character, again, just by definition, you're creating more work for yourself in the long run. In the long run, you know, as I said, King is incredibly strong, and players and another great example is a character like Jin, amazing, one of the strongest in the game, very very complicated, you know. So it's a much steeper learning curve, and you just got to bear that in mind. And if you, like me, you take a long break from a character, then you come back, then you know, don't be surprised if suddenly you get completely destroyed because you've completely, you know, forgotten how to use that specialist character. So that's something that, again, that happened to me. That's something you might want to bear in mind. I definitely think it's worth. I think it's worth at least trying another character, especially if you get to the point where the character you're playing is kind of, you're stuck at a certain rank again, you can't go any further. Pick up another one, because I think it really sort of makes you adjust the way you play. Okay, I find ironically that when I go back to playing King, who's, let's say, my main, played since Tekken 3, I actually autopilot far more than I do playing another character. And I think it's just because you just get into, you've got so much in muscle memory, you don't actually think about what you're doing, you just do it. So you might just sort of do constant sort of setups all the time, and you know, you're not really noticing what your other player's doing. Whereas if you play a new character where maybe you're not quite so familiar with how to, you know, with a flow or style, then you play more sort of, you play a bit more intelligently. You think you have to kind of think about what you're doing before you do it. You have to think, okay, is this person ducking a lot? Is this person being super defensive? Is this person being super aggressive? And you change your playstyle to go with it. Whereas if you're playing a character you played for, you know, a huge amount of years, and sometimes it's far too easy to go into autopilot. And I know I do that, and I'm sure that's contributed to why I've fallen, you know, quite so low down. So just something to bear in mind. You might be doing that as well. Right, I need to tighten this up a bit because we're pushing time. Another thing, just to add, a big factor for me, I don't know if it is for you, is Tekken is such a specialist game. You can be a casual, no doubt, okay? And there's probably a huge amount of player base like that, but being a casual player will only get you so far. Once you get to a certain point, there we go. Once you get to a certain point, you have to play this properly, and you have to dedicate a huge amount of time. And that's something I don't have. I already mentioned I have a small child, I have a wife, I have a full-time job. I've taken up more hours on that job recently. I don't have the time to grind in ranked, or to practice mode. Now, I don't know what my viewer base is like. You might be younger, you might not have as many responsibilities, you've got more time to play, and that's fantastic. You'll probably do well. If you're like me, and I suspect actually a lot of people are, and they're sort of maybe early 30s, because they played Tekken 3 and now they're coming back to Tekken 7. I see so many people who say they've done that path. That's what I did. It's actually after watching Lil Margin that really inspired me to want to pick the game up again. That's a whole different subject. So you just don't have the time to be able to do this. And so again, so your time in ranked is so limited, which again comes back down to into the lottery of what you're going to get. If you don't have, if you've got enough time to sort of, you know, play in ranked, then that lottery will roughly balance out, because for all the cheesy matches you get, you'll get some good ones. If, however, you're really sort of limited, then that is concentrated and you just get what you get. And in my case, for example, I've had a lot of much stronger players than me, or much stronger players with characters I'm not familiar with, and you just get completely destroyed. And if you've only got, say, half an hour in an evening to play some ranked, and you know 25 minutes of that is playing super strong players, and you may get 5 minutes of one person you're roughly the same, then that is just how it goes. So that's just something to bear in. So if you haven't got the time, you're going to, you know, you're not going to progress, and that's fine. It's, let's say, lots of people want to play this casually, but it's just something I think it's just something to bear in mind. If you want to get good, you have to have the time to be able to invest in this, because even if it's not grinding out in ranked, you know, you've got to invest the time into labbing all those different matchups. I mentioned earlier that I will only, at the moment, Tekken 8 may change, but at the moment I will only bother going, you know, learning matchups for characters that I know are going to be in Tekken 8 and are very, very familiar. So ones I've spent time into working out against, there's people like Hoang. Let's say I did a video on that. You know, Paul, because Paul is everywhere. Kazuya, he's everywhere. Brian, you know, I'll go in and try and learn these matchups. Armor King, because I'm trying to learn him. Again, he's everywhere because they're the most common. And you know, when you have very, very limited time and resources, you've got to invest it wisely, and that's the way I see it. So that's why I'm probably still going to end up being completely destroyed by every single Josie player that I bump into, or Katarina for that matter. Because again, I've had a request a few times. People say, "Oh, can you make an anti-Katarina guide?" And I probably will, but again, I'm thinking, what's the point? She might be gone in a year. I don't know for sure. She might carry on to Tekken 8. Who knows? Again, it's just, is it worth the time? Okay, so try to wrap this up fairly soon. I've yakking on for quite a long while. So so we talked about the reason why I personally suck and why I've been falling so far back in ranked, and why this might, you might have some similar things. So let's talk a bit more positive. Let's do some stuff to take away from this in terms of what you might want to do to sort of counter this. Firstly, spend more time in player matches. Player matches is a weird place because you never know what rank you're going to get. You might get a first dan, you might get a Tekken God Omega, but I find when I'm there, it feels a lot more relaxed. Okay, and I think it's the same for people playing. I think people play a lot less aggressively, generally speaking. There seems to be a lot less toxicity in there, although, you know, it still happens. And also, you know what you're getting, because I think most people there, if you know, you can see straight away, okay, I'm going to play someone who's in high blue rank, I'm going to play someone who's in orange, whatever. It just seems to be much more balanced. It's not this sort of, you don't get this kind of, oh, I'm playing a really strong player who's picking up a secondary, so I want to rank him up or whatever. So do that. Spend more time in player match and less time in ranked. You get a good variety, and also people are much more likely to stay for long sets. I find, even if they lose a lot, because again, I think people see player matches as kind of like a training ground, and so even if you're losing a lot, or they're losing a lot, people still stick around. And same if, like, you know, I definitely am more likely to stay for a longer set if I'm in player match compared to if I'm in ranked. That comes on to my next point, and this may be controversial, but I don't really care, to be honest. I'm at an age where I'll just say what I think, which is, if you're in ranked, don't fall for this sort of sweaty mentality of you have to rematch, you have to deathmatch. No, you don't. No one's making you. It's not within the rules of this game. I personally, unless I'm having a really crap day or the person is toxic or obnoxious, I have a personal rule where I try to do a best of 3. So, you know, if I'm playing someone, if I win, I'll rematch. If I lose, I'll try to rematch. And if I lose again, I say GG's, best of 3, they win. But you don't have to do that. I've played players which are just, you get completely blown up because they're just, as I say, they're using a gimmick character. I've no idea what's going on, and I don't have to stick around if I don't want to. Now, people may say, oh, that's really scrubby. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to play a really, really cheesy character with lots of gimmicks, fair enough, good luck to you. I don't have to stick around and endure it, to be honest. I see it as the kind of like the, you know, for want of a better word, it's almost like the free market of matchups. If you play in a way that doesn't piss everyone off, you're more likely to get rematches. If you play in a way which is just annoying, you're less likely to get a matchup. And I know that full in the irony of playing, of having King. I know a lot of people hate the King matchup, and fair enough. I don't mind that. I mean, I get it. If you missed it, anyway, I was about to say, I could totally understand why if you eat this like, you know, 3 times in a match, you're not going to want to stick around for that. I made a joke about it as in my RDC guide. I said if you want to make sure you never have a rematch, land that on your opponent and they'll be gone. But then, you know, that's fair enough. But everyone's free. You don't have to stick around for a rematch. You know, I personally try not to rely on throws too much when I'm playing King because, as I say, because I do want to get those rematches. But anyway, long story short, if you're playing, you don't have to rematch. Okay, if the person is clearly much stronger than you, they're playing a character you don't want to play, just don't bother. No, it's not. No one's going to come around your house and tell you you're a scrub or whatever. Just don't do it. Just, if you're like me, if you're limited for time, just try to sort of aim for the matches that, you know, you're going to either enjoy or you're going to learn from. If it's just going to be a load of bullshit thrown at you left, right and centre and you've got no idea what's going on, the only way you're going to do it is to go into your replays and spend hours, you know, analysing everything that person did. If you want to do that, fine, and good luck to you. And if you want to be super good, you'll have to do that. I don't have the time. I've got better things to do in my life, to be completely honest. So anyway, that may be slightly controversial, but I don't care. It's just saying what I think. So finally, just a couple more things that I definitely recommend you do. If you do have a very rare occasion of playing a really good set, or either, you know, or a character who the person just plays really well, and you have some good back and forths, I always send a friend request to that person at the end. You know, don't have to, but I do. I'll usually say GG's. And if you try to get friend requests, I'm talking Steam, I don't know if it's the same on PlayStation, I don't do that much. You're more likely to, if you send a friend request, you'll get to play that person out of ranked. And if they're really, really good, or they play a character that you're not familiar with, and you want to learn, that's a really good way to sort of to learn that matchup and progress, especially if that person is willing to sort of help you out. I had that with a really strong Jin player. I was really struggling, and he just gave me some tips. And I did the same. I showed him some King setup. So I said, for example, look, you were hitting too much after that. You're at negative, and I was getting away with free. I was getting away with this all the time. Just little things like that. You know, you help each other, and that you can spend 5 minutes of Steam chats of explaining while doing, while having a lobby session, and that will give you more progress than 2 hours of grinding in ranked. You know, and far better for your mental health. Let's be honest. If you're talking to someone who's actually, you know, a real person who is willing to give you tips and little things to look out for, that is a far better way of learning a matchup, in my opinion, than either grinding it out in ranked or in practice mode. So I always try to do that. It's a little tip from me, but do what you want to. And finally, and it's kind of what I alluded to earlier, if you are very limited for time, which I am, as an example, and you're in practice mode, although this is definitely a case of it's definitely a case of do what I say, not as I do, or whatever the phrase is. Go into practice mode. Don't just spend all your time trying to work on your flashy combos. That I'm going to now drop now I've mentioned it. Because although that's fun, what's going to be much more useful of your time is go into practice mode and then go into punishment training of the most common matchups that are destroying you at the time. As I mentioned, I think the obvious ones to go for are the ones where you see the most, so Kazuyas, Pauls, Bryans, Armor Kings, you know, because they're everywhere. Go and spend some time learning those. I would definitely recommend Hoang as well, because he gets away with so much for free. And do it that way. So, you know, rather than trying to put it this way, what's more important? You learn to sort of do a max damage combo that gives you, say, 5 more points of damage compared to a much easier bread and butter one. What's more important, doing that or making sure that you know what move was launch punishable in the first place? Do you see what I mean? There's no point in sort of being like, oh yeah, I can score 5 more points of damage now, but it's much better just know, oh, that's launch punishable, and I know that because I practiced in practice mode. I'll launch it. That's better. You're going to, because that's going to give you 60 plus damage, not no damage, if you see what I mean. Anyway, I hope I've made that fairly clear. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I'll add to now. I assume this video's rambled on for a fair amount of time, but let me know, guys, what you think about all this. Am I being a salty scrub? You know, should I just get good? Should I stop whinging? Whatever. I'd love to know what your rank experience are. Do you even play ranked at the moment, or have you just kind of given up and just sort of hanging out, waiting for Tekken 8 to come out? Do you experience the kind of thing I talk about? Is there anything I've missed? Drop a comment. Let's have a discussion going. And finally, just let me know if you've enjoyed this kind of rambling video, or whether you just, you know, shut up, get back to making your usual stuff. I just thought I'd try it out, just to see what you guys thought. Anyway, thanks for listening to my TED Talk, and look forward to seeing you in the next one, guys.